board meeting to order. Mr. Wilburn, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Katie Howard.
Present.
Representing Educational District 2, Mr. Tony Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District 3 and Board Vice Chair, Dr. Ken Zeff.
Present.
Representing Educational District 4, Ms. Jennifer McDonald.
Present.
Representing Educational District 5, Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District 6, Ms. Patrice Hutcherson.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large C8, Dr. Casey Brock.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9 and Board Chair, Ms. Jessica Johnson.
Present.
Also present, we have our Superintendent, Dr. Brian Johnson, our General Counsel, Madam Nina Gupta, and also Mr. Alfred Shivy Brooks. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 2nd, 2026 board meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved by Board Member McDonald and second by Board Member Mitchell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the May 4th, 2026 board meeting?
So moved.
It has been properly moved by Board Member McDonald and seconded by,
Second.
seconded by Board Member Zeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I will now turn the floor over to Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we have three presentations for the board. One strategy update. Dr. Shatina Love and Dr. Anya Payne will provide an update on our efforts to target resources towards subgroups. Our second presentation will be a focus on finance. Dr. Bracken and myself will tag team to give an update on the FY27 budget as well as the normal monthly standing. And then our final presentation will focus on policy that the board is considering. Dr. O.G. Dennis and Dr. McKinney will give an update, as well as Ms. Barnett on that counseling advisement and academic career planning. So Dr. Love and Dr. Payne, we are ready for your presentations.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Zeff, board members, and Superintendent Johnson. Thank you for the opportunity to share our May strategy update. I am Dr. Shatina Love, Assistant Superintendent, and I am joined by Dr. Cadence Spearman and Dr. Margaret McKenzie, who is at a national conference and could not join us today. Together, our teams support more than 14,000 students across the district, ensuring they have access to grade-level instruction and supports needed to succeed. Today, I will highlight how we are strengthening instruction for key student groups. This work reflects our district's commitment: one district, one goal, every child. We are focusing on students in general education who also receive additional services, including exceptional education, ESOL, and gifted. Each group represents between 5 and 13% of our overall student population, and together they reflect a diverse group of learners with a wide range of needs. As we improve outcomes for these students, we strengthen outcomes for the entire district. Our targets are clear. We're striving for a 10% increase in proficiency for students with disabilities and a 5% increase for English learners by June 2026. These aren't just subgroups. They are the drivers for our overall district success. At the same time, student growth is trending upward, moving towards our 75% goal in the next 4 years. We're seeing meaningful progress. Students with disabilities met improvement targets in 9 of the 11 areas on the 2025 GMAS, a significant increase from just 3 areas the previous year. To address performance gaps on the Georgia Alternative Assessment, we have expanded the unique learning curriculum across all grade levels. As you can see on slide 8, our English learners continue to demonstrate steady growth in language development. And our gifted students continue to perform at a high level with over 90% proficiency in core content areas. To sustain this growth, we are making intentional investments in our staff. Our work is focused on 3 key strategies: aligning staffing and professional learning, implementing high-quality instructional resources, and strengthening family and community partnerships. Let's start with exceptional education, where we remain focused on ensuring high-quality, inclusive supports for students. Across the district, we support over 560 teachers, more than 400 paraprofessionals, and a range of specialized staff, including therapists and school psychologists. We're building staff capacity through coaching, classroom observations, and targeted professional learning in specially designed instruction, assistive technology, and high-leverage inclusive practices. This work is applied in real time with increased classroom visits to ensure feedback is timely and aligned to student outcomes. Funding continues to increase in alignment with student needs. For example, the number of students identified with autism has increased by 300 students over the past 3 years. Likewise, we have increased personnel with approximately 90% of these funds supporting staffing in classrooms directly. We appreciate the board's continued investment in meeting these needs of our students. Following our internal audit, we have strengthened systems across the district. Improvements include clear procedures, stronger IEP processes, enhanced progress monitoring, and improved alignment across departments. As a result, 98% of IEPs are now completed on time. Initial evaluation compliance exceeds 98%, and more than 3,000 students are assessed and progress monitored through the MTSS process. As a result of this focused work, we earned a score of 100 on all state indicators on the 2025 LEA designation, our state report card, the first time in 5 years. We continue to expand access to high-quality resources that support effective instruction, IEP development, and targeted coaching for schools. We also address ongoing challenges we are also addressing ongoing challenges, including the shortage of school psychologists. Our team was awarded a federal school-based mental health grant, one of 65 nationally, to support staffing and long-term planning. We recognize that strong outcomes require strong partnerships. We continue to engage families through programs such as Extended School Year, Special Olympics, and family engagement events. These efforts support career readiness, transition planning, and real-world opportunities for students. As we shift to English learners, it is important to note that this is a dynamic group. Students transition out of this group over time as they develop English proficiency. Nearly every school serves English learners. We support this work through strong instructional models and professional learning. In APS, over 800 teachers hold the ESOL endorsement, and 20% of our English learners are served in the dual language immersion programs, and we plan to continue to expand that support. We provide targeted resources, including Elevation, a platform of instructional differentiation strategies linked to language data, which is available to all teachers across the district. As a result, many English learners achieve the highest levels, including graduating at the top of their class. Last year was no exception. As you can see, our twin brothers from Mays High School, who began as English learners in APS in kindergarten and are now attending Georgia Tech on a full ride scholarship. Family engagement is critical, and our community partners are essential to the work. Our partners include Agape, La Amistad, the Mexican Consulate, and the Mayor's Office of Immigrant and International Affairs. This year, we completed over 8,000 translation requests and continued to partner with community organizations to ensure families are informed and supported. Next, I will highlight our work in gifted and talented education. APS continues to be a leader in gifted education. On average, 27% of the 4,000 students referred qualify for services annually. 12% of our district's overall enrollment receive gifted services, and more than 1,000 teachers are endorsed to support those students. We are also expanding access for our English learners, our twice exceptional students, reflecting our commitment to access and equity. We are maximizing our impact through key partnerships such as Riverside Insights, which helps us identify giftedness more equitably through the COGAT, and the Georgia Association for Gifted Children, which provides critical funding for our educators' professional development. Success goes beyond the classroom. From the Georgia Academic Decathlon, where Booker T. Washington and North Atlanta High Schools represented Atlanta Public Schools at nationals, to international experiences in Ecuador and Portugal, our students are competing, creating, and leading at the highest levels. As we move forward, our focus remains clear. We are aligning our people, professional learning, resources, and partnerships to ensure every student has access to high-quality instruction. We're making progress, strengthening our systems, and remaining committed to continuous improvement. Thank you for your time and for your continued support for our students and our staff.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and I'll just maybe start us off by saying that, from the audit, which was, a year and a half, 2 years ago, to seeing the compliance rates now and the 100%, that definitely just kudos to you all. I think we should give you all a hand for that progress that was made so far. I will start to my right with board colleague questions. Go ahead, Board Member Howard.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Love, and I obviously echo appreciation for all the hard work that's been done in the compliance and highlighting that in these slides and talking about the data, where we've been, where we're going, and all the work that's gone into where we are today. So thank you and your team and everyone in each of these areas, and seeing the double identified students and really making sure they have access to gifted services is wonderful too. Certainly want to recognize that. My questions are around English learners, DLI. I know Dr. McKenzie's not here, so if we need to punt a little, that's fine, understand. It's great that we obviously have DLI, it's growing, and the work that's being done to support our English learners. Wanted to know a little more about how we're tracking the impact of DLI, which our policy is to prioritize English learners with those programs. If you all could speak to that a little bit, just so we could know how that's having an impact and how we're leveraging it further or plan to.
So we are tracking those programs through, if the students are EL students, through the access assessment. And so our students, in order to exit out, they must score a 5 or higher on the composite. So we are tracking access. We have had growth in that area, as well as, of course, our end of course and end of grade assessments. We do track that by subgroup data to ensure that we understand what percentage of students are proficient or higher in those areas. So we do track them through access and then also through Georgia Milestone Assessment.
Thank you for that. It'd be great if we could see some follow-up data around that, just to know, like, just the impact of that program. Clearly, it's a benefit to other students as well, but just making sure as potentially looking to expand it and seeing it's one of our strategies, how we're having the most impact to support our English learners.
And 20%, about 20% of students in the DLL program are English language learners as well. So we are able to track.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Quick couple of questions, and mine are around our exceptional education students. I'm looking at the graph on slide 13 as we look at just the increase of dollars year over year. Can you kind of talk to, it looks like we've had a really big jump from 24 to 25 and 25 to 26 on the budgeted side. What are those dollars, I guess, what are we using those dollars, those increased dollars for? And like, how are they kind of correlated with the success that we've seen over the last couple of years? I just want to kind of follow the dollar. Where are we putting those dollars now?
Absolutely. So 90% of those funds go towards personnel, and that personnel is directly attached to classrooms. That means our paraprofessionals, our teachers, our itinerant teachers as well. And so when we talk about tracking it directly to student achievement and performance, this year we've noticed that through our MAP scores, we've had a decrease of our students who are at the beginning level and an increase of our students who are at the proficient or distinguished level. So we see a direct correlation with the movement of our student growth based on the needs of our students and the staffing that we have.
Thank you. And that kind of goes to a little of my next question. So I'm looking at slide now 15 and just the shift that we've made from the, I guess, needs assistance category to the meets requirements category. What are some of the things that we put in place to see some of that big shift happen?
Absolutely. So the 2024 internal audit that was done for special education highlighted some gaps around systems and monitoring of the work that we were doing. So some things that we've done specifically is we've shifted directly to a Go IEP system, which is also supported by the state of Georgia. That system allows us to more intentionally and effectively create IEPs and goals for our students, but it also allows us to monitor and audit the IEPs that are completed. We've also done several cross-functional trainings that include our MTSS team, our school psychologists, our lead teachers, and others around the initiation or identification process, and as students go through the interventions that we must go through, Tier 2, Tier 3, before they are actually identified as exceptional education. So we've aligned there. The other thing that we've done is we had an investment into the Goldbook system platform, and that Goldbook platform, again, helps our teachers not just write efficient or operational IEPs, but it also provides a progress monitoring piece, and so our teachers are able to monitor student performance as well. And so as we look at all of those opportunities, along with internal audits, whether we do a sampling across the district or whether we're doing an IEP audit directly of a school, by tightening up those systems, we've seen where we have just tightened up our systems, we've seen where our improvements are. And then lastly, we've been very intentional around communicating compliance concerns with our school leaders, and they've been responsive in understanding the importance of this work.
Thank you for that. It's always good to hear that we're becoming a more efficient system. especially as it relates to our systems. My last question is, how are we bringing in community feedback? I've heard a lot from parents that there's a lot of kind of questions and unanswered questions around some of our exceptional education students. How are we bridging in community feedback to kind of dictate a tempo or kind of address some of the questions that so many parents have around this issue area?
Yep, thank you for asking that. One thing we've done this year is be very intentional around our responsiveness to our parents. And so we have a goal of 24 to 48 hours of being responsive if a parent reaches out. The other part of the work is being intentional around being in spaces where our parents are. And so we've attended, myself or a representative has attended all of the acceleration meetings. Any meeting that the district holds, we are a part of. And then also we have our cafes, our parent cafes, where there are virtual learning opportunities where our parents are invited in to learn about different things from big feelings or big emotions to the IEP process.
Super helpful to hear. I've had a few questions from some of the parents around how do we better kind of create opportunities for them to kind of hear more about some of the work that's happening with exceptional students. Can we do that on the weekends? Can we find a schedule that works for them? I know that some of them have mentioned that the need for some childcare services. So just want us to be thinking about how do we get the most from our parents who know their children so well, and start to integrate some of their learnings and understandings into some of the work that we're doing in this space. So thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Love. And I want to just pick up just briefly on the point that that board member Tony.
I can be a doctor. I'm fine being a doctor.
My esteemed colleague from District 2. Can you go to 13 for a second? So is this increasing because of we're now identifying better, or is it because that public schools take all kids? I mean, you this number that you said, 300 new autistic kids in the past, did you say 2 years?
3.
Past 3 years. That's a big number.
It is.
Is that because, so do you think that's because we're better identifying, or is it more likely that because we take everybody?
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. We absolutely better identify our students. We actually just had a meeting with the CDC where they noted that 1 in 31 students now is identified with autism. Some of that identification comes directly at the school level, while some of it comes from a medical professional. And so those needs of our students are increasing in those areas. And so we have an increase of students that are in our regional classes also as a direct result, and then also our communication needs have increased, and so our speech pathologists and the need for those services have increased as well. And so to your point around just the identification over the last 5 years, when I name autism specifically, that increase has been 83% over the last 5 years.
That's a big number. And so I wonder, and I'm just tying this to a presentation we're going to hear from Dr. Bracken in a little bit. I mean, Dr. Johnson and team have done a terrific job of really managing our costs, but this is coming at us like a freight train with these escalating costs. And so it sounds like your assessment is that we should expect additional pressure on budget to meet the needs of our special ed students.
Absolutely.
In many parts, because we're improving our identification, because we take all kids.
Well, we're improving our identification, but then also we are seeing just an increase in need. We have students that are presenting with more severe needs. We have students that are presenting with secondary and tertiary needs as well. And so we have to make sure as a public entity, we are responsive to all of those needs.
So it's good to hear, and it's a good answer when the public says, where are the additional resources going? We're being very thoughtful about how we're spending dollars in central office, but we have to meet the needs of our kids.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just quickly add that I think you also have a combination of parents knowing their rights better, and more grassroots like Thrive that's working arm in arm with parents to make sure they understand not just their rights, but what resources are available and are pushing. So you have all those things mix into the equation as you see this number continue to grow.
Thank you. Board Member Brooks? Okay, Board Member.
Thank you so much, Dr. Love. And I forget that I don't want to call you Dr. Lawrence.
Dr. Payne.
That's your mama's name.
Dr. Payne.
Dr. Payne. I know, I feel so bad.
Oh my God.
The gifted students, do we know where they are, how we're dispersed? Like, my question is, and this could be to Dr. Johnson, I don't know, we want to get those children in all of the schools. I want to see the gifted numbers across the board, but where are they right now? And, you know, what can we do to increase that number, to make sure that we're growing in that area as well? I want to see gifted at all schools, and especially in District 6. That's where I am. But I want to know where they are and how can we get them in every area.
So yes, we do have some of that information in the appendix. I'm sorry. We have some of that information in the appendix about where those students are located. We do actually have a higher percentage than the state as we identify gifted students. So we have a higher percentage of gifted identification than any other district in the state. And so we do work to identify those students at every school. We've invested in some platforms, and I'll let Dr. Spearman share a little bit more about that, about how we identify our students and how we are able to have those percentages that exceed our counterparts, especially in the metro area.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Spearman, coordinator of Gifted and Talented Education. And to your point, in the appendix is something that Dr. Love mentioned, that out of the 4,000 students that we refer, that are referred for gifted assessment, we identify 27% of students, which is higher than the national and the state level. In addition, we have a higher number of twice exceptional and English learners that are gifted identified as well. We have gifted students in every school in Atlanta Public Schools, and as well, we have the support. So each school has a gifted lead. Some schools share that gifted lead, but those students are at every school, and we have a teacher or multiple teachers at the school to support those students as well. In regards to increasing the number, we have been intentional about our talent development cohort, and in that cohort, that's for schools that have low numbers of identified students and or students that when they're looked at all four assessments, they might have gotten 2 out of the 4 yeses. And so these are students that we want to continue to work with. And so our schools that are a part of that talent development cohort have been working with the teachers, the staff, and the students. And what we are seeing is that schools that participate in talent development, we are identifying more students, and that is in some of the districts or areas that you mentioned.
Thank you. I think that the main thing is, because I want to see the dollar amount increase as well for this department, but programming that will get them there, Dr. Johnson, magnets, talents, whatever, so that we can get them dispersed in all levels. And you all may be doing that, but we want to make sure that we're giving the money to go after the children and have them in all those buildings so they want to come to our schools across the board. So thank you.
Board Member Brooks.
Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing? So I had a couple questions. Thank you, first off, for the presentation. I'm grateful that Chair Johnson took the time to really applaud the 98% compliance. I'm a former special educator. I know what it felt like to have 36 kids on my caseload and nobody was in compliance. It's raggedy. It's hard. And to bring everybody into compliance, all the meetings that it takes, notifying all the teachers, coordinating the meeting, et cetera, it takes a lot of time and effort. And I give big kudos to our special educators. In fact, I actually believe like our special educators should be paid a differential because I think they do more than a traditional teacher does, respectfully. My question is, across our students with disabilities, English language learners, and gifted, where are we seeing the strongest return on investment? And where are we investing without yet seeing meaningful outcomes? And to follow up with that, to save some time, how is that analysis informing our budget priorities moving forward? As we are seeing a large increase in exceptional education funding, rightfully so, but just wanting to know how we are being intentional based upon our analysis on what's working, what's maybe not working so much.
Thank you for that very intricate question. So I think I'll start with where I picked up. Where are we investing without seeing meaningful outcomes? And I don't know that that is happening, right? So when I say that, I mean we're seeing an increase of our students who are being served as twice exceptional or being duly identified and gifted and ESOL, if you will. And so those are investments that we're continuing to improve upon for our students. Our students are performing better academically in exceptional education. So we're seeing an increase, as we see an increase of staffing, we're seeing an increase of our tier one instruction and partnering with our teaching and learning team to ensure all of our students have access to grade level learning. So while we're seeing more adults in the building, we are also seeing improved instruction as well. Along with that improved instruction, as we continue to provide coaching for our staff members and ensure that they have what they need to be successful, I don't know that we're not seeing meaningful outcomes for our students.
Thank you. My last question is, in addition, I'm sorry, did you?
That another investment that we're making is that although we have these students in subgroups, we are as they go, they just don't go to a gifted teacher or ESOL teacher because they have other courses throughout the day. So one of the ways that we've been investing is ensuring that more teachers have the ESOL endorsement, more teachers have the gifted endorsement. So when they go from class to class, they're being exposed to those strategies throughout the school day and not just in isolation when they go to those specific subgroup or targeted subgroup support.
Thank you for highlighting that. And I encourage us, if we can get to a place where talking about the percentage of our teachers being gifted, endorsed as a bragging right and a hallmark of our school system, I think is something that I would definitely support. My last question, look, our kids are more than standardized tests. And as a personal standardized test hater, I struggle sometimes when our conversations are rooted solely around outcomes on standardized tests. In addition to standardized test assessment data, what other indicators of student growth are we tracking across our subgroups, particularly in the areas of discipline, attendance, behavior, or student well-being? And can we review trends in metrics such as suspension rates, chronic absenteeism, or school climate? And how are those outcomes being informed through our instructional support strategies?
So we do monitor those subgroups through those areas and through our discipline out of school suspensions. That is a KPI to increase the number of students that are not suspended within the school district. And then also when we talk about other indicators of our students performing outside of standardized testing, we also monitor how our students are doing within programs. For instance, our CTAE programs, we monitor how students are performing there, with a huge highlight for Dr. Wilson and her team in their HVAC programming. They had 20 students that passed I may not get the numbers totally right, but I believe they had 20 students that received their HVAC certification. 13 of those students were students with disabilities. So we're seeing our students in multiple spaces. To Dr. Payne's point, they're receiving services that help them access grade level or programmatic skills. And so we're seeing our students performing better. Now, when it comes to discipline and out of school suspension, again, we are monitoring those. We do have, we call them SSDSs, which are our school supports for disproportionality. And so those staff members are focused on identifying interventions and supports for students who are receiving a large number, if you will, of out of school suspensions, because we know if they're not in school, they're not receiving services and their learning has been delayed.
Thank you.
Board Member Brock?
Yeah, just a very quick one. So one, Board Member Mitchell kind of mentioned this a little bit. I feel like the community, the most common conversation I have is around this topic, especially for parents who've chosen to not put their students in APS schools. And so I think it's a really great opportunity to share a lot of this, to celebrate it, but also thinking, I feel like I always talk about comms and communications and marketing. I don't know why, but I think being able to get this out to parents who've maybe chosen schools that aren't APS schools, to let them know that we're making strides in this area and that if they would like to choose APS, that we'll have options for them. That also goes to my second one. We didn't really get into it too much, but where it says on slide 27, expand regional program availability. I brought this up recently to Dr. Johnson. He was like, "Oh, we're working on it." I was like, "Great," because I was talking to a parent about this. I was like, "It would be so cool if you didn't have to travel all the way across the city just to be able to have your needs met if your students identify as exceptional in some way." And so just wondering, just a really brief touch on that one, if there's any movement that's been made there, because I would love to see every cluster having something, some kind of option for their students to be able to have their needs served.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Brock. So we are, for the 26-27 school year, we are implementing a pilot program with the Douglas cluster that will allow for every regional classroom offering to be within the cluster. And so we're really excited about that work. To your point around parents having to travel long distances, it's about the student needs and creating community where they are, and so we're leaning into that heavily. Some spaces will take more time because we would have to add more classes, but we're using the 26-27 school year as a pilot year to review the benefits and the costs of moving in that direction. So we're really excited about that work.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I can't wait to share it with a couple of people in particular who've been asking for this.
All right, thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly recap what I heard from my colleagues. Emphasis on the strategies to keep families more informed and make sure that they're connected to resources, and happy to hear a lot of the progress that was made there. We had a really good discussion about exceptional student needs and the correlation to the budget choices that we're making at this time. I just want to pin that as we get into our budget conversation later today for my colleagues. Very promising to hear the increased endorsements for teachers and the kind of more stretching into whole school supports for our students in some of these groups. And I think that really has translated to increased students being identified and enrolled. Happy to hear about the talent development part. One piece that I would be curious about as a follow-up is, and what, if any, parts of the identification for gifted children has changed? I know there used to be a subjective piece that kind of created some barriers for students to actually be selected as gifted, and just curious if there's any follow-ups you can share about what might have changed about that process.
Sure. So one things that we use a universal screener. The MAP that all students take is our universal screener, and that has reduced bias as far as teacher and parent references because we already have a data point. And that MAP is also one piece of the 4 that we need as to identify students. That's our achievement assessment. So we are making some new changes to help support the amount of time that students are actually spending on being assessed that are coming up for next school years that we're really excited about. But yes, most definitely that MAP assessment has reduced that.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear
Yes.
that, particularly. And then we just would love follow-ups on the Douglas pilot as it progresses. Thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for presentation. So we will turn to budget at this time, and Dr. Bracken's coming up. We'll jump in. So much of this was a good portion of this you'll see is a represent of the budget commission work that took place, I guess, a couple of weeks ago now. And if we get started, you can go to the next slide. Obviously, our strategic plan ultimately guides our work as a district, and the budget fuels that plan and fuels the work and the strategies that we want to implement. Feedback was really important to us as we got going this budget cycle, and so you'll see here just some results from the survey. These are updated, I believe, post the Budget Commission presentation, but you'll see where our community articulated need, professional learning, community hub investment, salary investments, East Blast investments, almost 3,000 responses, primarily parents that were involved in that feedback. We also heard from students as recent as last week. Our students were able to articulate, which we are excited and appreciative of, their needs and desires. They're closest to it. In addition to obviously teachers and staff. And so hearing from students things that are important, we heard advisement, we heard about options, as well as various and sundry other things that we heard last week during the student advisory conversation. But I think you'll see through this budget that there are several measures that are in place that's already moving in this direction. So here's the headline of this budget. In reality, is a balanced budget, first balanced budget since FY23 without the usage of fund balance, and so it's a lean budget, but it is a balanced budget. Also within there, you see investment in our students. That's really important. Approaching $40 million in curriculum and primarily literacy, science, math, investments in areas like AP and making sure that they're actually text in those particular areas, and then also innovation. And then as noted, Dr. Love came up that investment in exceptional ed continues to move forward, and so we just understand that that's something that we need to be doing, and you see additional investment there of $10 million. Our staff is really important to us, teachers, leaders, support staff, and so you see about a $19 million investment there. And then we heard from residential homeowners, taxpayers across Atlanta, just the challenge of the moment, right? And so as we look at operating with intention, being able to reduce the millage rate from 20.5 mils to 20.3 mils is what's proposed in this this budget. When you look at the recap, it is a lean budget. You do see responsible spending. You do see that continued focus on things like competitive strategies or salaries, and the alignment to the strategic plan, and ultimately that commitment to instruction. And as we talk about instruction, if you go a couple of slides forward, the investments in literacy are actually a continuation. We paid year one last year. This is a continuation of the investments there, as well as investments in science and in math, which has been some time since we've made deep investments in those areas, all encompassing, all including the professional learning necessary and the support necessary to be successful. You see essentially the same thing in grades 6 through 12. That investment in core work and support of schools, support of teachers, ultimately support of students. And so the other thing I would mention, K through 5, there is investment in the accelerated literacy model as we look at the 4 schools that we are launching that model in. When we look at the care for every child, you see just in a different way similarly the additional investment that has been made in exceptional education, and almost a doubling since 2021. And so we'll continue to be intentional in that space. But we also know that we've got to make investment in regards to student transitions. And so as we look at the transitions that are necessary to be made over the course of the next several months, we know that it's going to take continued investment. We want to do that as thoughtfully and intentionally as possible with as least disruption to students as we possibly can. And then when you look at our investment in employees, and our employees being our strength, kudos to this board over the last several years. Almost $275 million has been invested in employees. You see the major move forward between FY 23 and 24, and even into 25. And those investments allowed us to move to a place where we are either amongst or the top paying school district in Metro Atlanta, which is really important. In fact, until you get to step 24, we're the highest paying for bachelors. You can see our starting pay for masters is above Fulton, and our mid-range pay for our masters is above Cobb. So this is where we want to be in the conversation as teachers and staff are looking for places of destination. And how does that play out? Well, how it plays out is you see. Well, I'll give you some credit. Yeah, how it pays out is you see single digit vacancies as you start the school year. It did create tough budget compression that we had to navigate through. I'm messing with Board Member Brooks, as he says, talk about it. But it does play out really in high quality teachers being in the classroom, and even in the case this year where you see three vacancies, those three classes that were unfilled were actually filled by certified subs, and so we're able to make sure that there's a great teacher in front of every single student. So when you look at this year's recommendation, the majority of it is in our people. You see about a 2.5%. Most employees see about a 2.5% increase in their pay. I think one of the things I share with Budget Commission is there's some compression, particularly at the elementary grade band with elementary assistant principals or elementary instructional coaches and elementary assistant principals. So we've got to rectify that a little bit. And then just continuing with H-1B visa and the stipend supporting the accelerated literacy model is the recommendation that's there. And then when you look at innovative programming, we look to continue to make investments in the areas of CTAE pathways. We've heard from many of you on the board. This is an area of priority. We'll continue to make investment in those spaces, as well as the arts and healthcare. Shelley Goodrum and that team continue to work with partners in multiple spaces, and a lot of exciting things on the horizon, whether it's aviation or medical and several other things that are on the cusp of being formalized. Lastly, our responsibility being shared. We shared a few weeks ago about looking at our hubs and investment in these spaces. And as we look at investment in these spaces, we want to make sure that we cater them to the needs of the respective school community, and that they are really effective for schools. This particular item is really connected as well to the transition conversation that I mentioned earlier, and it's an area that we know and anticipate there will be some investment made. And so I'll turn now to Dr. Bracken to kind of take us through the rest, our system being efficient, effective, as well as the monthly update.
Sure. So, yes, what we're really proud of is that we're able to invest in all of those initiatives while, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, having no usage of fund balance as a part of this budget, and then also able to roll back the millage rate from 20.5 mils to 20.3. Because of that millage rollback, we're only anticipating about a 2% increase in local revenue this year. We are seeing a significant increase from the state. Primarily, we're seeing additional funding, about $3 million in additional funding for the literacy coaches. And of course, the state is helping to fund some of the TRS and state health increases. Fund balance, again, no usage of fund balance, but overall total revenue is only up about 1%. How that plays across their expenditures, we're seeing elementary and middle and high in alignment with the enrollment projections. So, and where enrollment is down, we're seeing a little reduction in those allocations. We've also re-centralized some of the components of the school-based budgets that will be distributed with the leveling dollars in September. We also see a decrease in the charter allocations as we anticipate the closure of Kipsole Elementary and Kipsole Middle. And the department budgets are up a bit because that is where we're holding our curriculum and textbook adoptions, increases in substitutes, and some centralized increases in the accelerated literacy model. The rest of that increase is because of salary increases and benefit increases. Again, just a 1% increase overall for the total budget. So here we can see the historical use of fund balance. As Dr. Johnson mentioned, we have not had a balanced budget since FY 2023. In FY 25, we were heavily dependent on fund balance, and we've been working aggressively to become more efficient in our spend of fund balance. Last year, only using about $13 million. It's closer to $20 million now with your approval last month for the one-time payments. But for FY 27, using no fund balance. What that means for us is that we will begin next year with a fund balance that equals about 11.5% of our total approved expenditures. So that's well above the floor of 7.5% and not quite at our goal of 15%. The other big news takeaway for this budget is to provide about $10 million in tax relief for our homeowners. And property tax relief. This is the first millage decrease since FY 2022, where we decreased a full mill. So we are continuing to provide tax relief. This is the history of the tax relief that APS has participated in. 2 millage decreases. This will be our third since 2018. And then also some exemptions that we have worked through in 2018. We increased our targeted homestead exemption from $30,000 to $50,000. In 2025, we increased a $50,000 exemption for seniors and continuing to work on providing that relief. Charter and partner adjustments. This is where you're going to see the reduction of the Kipsole Elementary and Kipsole Middle budgets. That's about 443 students from Kipsole Primary and 264 students from Kipsole Middle School. And then also Carver STEAM, as we're seeing the roll off of the 9th grade students, about 168 students there. Some tentative additional adjustments. So this is what we're looking for looking ahead. So we know that the current budget is balanced, and we will build that out across the multi-year to show what that's going to look like over the next 5 years. But what we still need to build into the multi-year is about $60 million of additional bold goals. So that $60 million would be able to support an expansion of pre-K. It would be able to fund additional community hubs, an expansion of the accelerated literacy model, reaching our goal of $100,000 average salary. So we still have a lot of work to do, and we need to make sure that that revenue stream is still guaranteed to us as we continue to expand those strategic initiatives. Next steps for us. So tomorrow night, we will have a budget community engagement meeting. It's virtual. We do these every year. I'll be online from 6 to around 7 o'clock just to present the budget and to take any feedback and questions that people might have. We'll do that again May 12th. And then we will be back before you June 1st for the final adoption. The millage process does kind of come later on. We have to wait until we get the full digest from Fulton County and DeKalb. So we will let you know and keep you updated as that process plays out. That wraps up our FY 27 budget. We'll leave you again with this one slide that really highlights all of the great work that this budget accomplishes. Again, just committing more than $37 million over the next 5 years to fund literacy, curriculum, professional development, and expansion of programs to support the instructional core. It includes an additional $10 million for paraprofessionals, teachers, and direct support for exceptional education programs in alignment with our strategic goal to care for every child. We're continuing investments and strengthening our team through a new $19 million addition to compensation for all personnel. This is on top of the more than $16 million distributed last month in appreciation stipends. And finally, we are doing all of this while ensuring our system becomes more efficient and effective by developing a balanced budget with no dependence on fund balance More so, we understand that our responsibility is shared, and we're providing more than $10 million in taxpayer relief by rolling back our millage rate. So very quickly, I'll plow through just our monthly financials, and then I'll pause for questions. Our local revenue for the current fiscal year through the month of March continues to collect ahead of pace. So last year at this time, we had collected about 88.19% of revenue. This year, we're at 89.55% of revenue. So that's a good sign. We'll continue to watch for that. Expenditures are in alignment with where we should be this time of year. We are tracking a bit ahead of pace in instruction and some of our other functional areas, but we are lagging in other functional areas. And so we'll continue to watch this. The same trend is what we're seeing play out in subs and hourly employees, the other compensation categories. So we'll watch that throughout the course of this year. This is our third quarter student activity report that we regularly present to you. As of March, we had collected about $4.5 million, and the total expenditures so far were about $3.5 million. And finally, we do have one budget adjustment we'll be bringing to you this evening for approval. It is to the general fund. It's a $40,000 grant from the state to offset the IB exam fees. And so we'll be asking to approve both revenue and expenditures to support that. And with that, we'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bracken. Of course, the headline here is balanced budget. With all of the moving pieces, I will start on my left for colleague questions.
So equitable of you. I know you know what it's like to sit on this side. At the end, you're like rushing. You're like, oh, one question. Thank you so much. I joked with a colleague last week about all of the different things that people write about APS, and I'm like, oh, they didn't write this. Weird. But thank you. Congratulations to you. Thank you to our budget committee on the hard work that went into this. And I don't have much except, a lot of times I think the questions we have, especially if we're newer, is like, oh, what happened with this? What happened with that with this really big decision? And so I would push us all as we're moving forward to think about all of these sacrifices that we've made, all these really difficult decisions we've made, and what it means for student outcomes. Like I would love in 5 years to be able to say, we made this decision and it led to this. We made this decision and it led to this. Even thinking about, compensation, thinking about just all these different investments. So thank you so much, and congrats to, I guess, us. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Does our student rep have a question? Yes, and could you tell us your name and your school?
Hello, my name is Kai Early. I go to Carver STEAM. It's nice being here. This is very interesting. But so I really do love everything that's happening. But from the perspective of a student like me, how would we be able to see the outcomes of these initiatives in our day-to-day school days?
Yeah, do you want to take it? Do you want me to?
Happy to. Or why don't we get somebody from, let's talk more academics, more academics in school. Yeah, why don't I actually call on the subject matter experts to come up? So does anybody want to come up from, I can answer, but I always love when other folks, Dr. Payne coming up. And then, yeah, we'll start with Dr. Payne, and you can talk about secondary. Awesome.
All right, so you're asking about how are these funds translated into your day-to-day school, like things you can see, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So some of the things that happen day-to-day in your school that this funding impacts is, one, your textbooks. So you just saw at the secondary level, we're going to spend about $12 million over 5 years. And so we just have a new textbook adoption. So you have a HMH into literature textbook that you should have in your school. And so next year, what grade are you in?
I'm a junior 11th.
Okay, so that's what you should have as far as English language arts. And then next year, you should have new math and science textbooks. And so we want to make sure that you have cutting edge resources that you're able to utilize in your classroom, okay? And so also fine arts, health and PE, gifted. So when your classmates are, or you are participating in governor's honors and things of that nature, having biliteracy seals, completing your pathways, those are some of the things that we're funding. Also, when your teachers, we provide professional learning for your teachers to ensure that they're getting better day by day, and so that they're able to implement lesson plans and instruction at a high level, making sure that we're integrating technology in your classrooms. So all of those things are things that we're funding to make sure that you have a stronger experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Brooks.
Thank you. I'm grateful that we were there talking about the textbook rollout. That was kind of more along the lines of my line of questioning. And please, none of my friends from HMH or Benchmark call me after this. The instructional strategy behind HMH and Benchmark being implemented at the primary levels, is that something we were intending to do as a short-term thing, or we basically gave clusters like the opportunity to choose one or the other?
Hey, everybody. Yes, at the elementary school level, we have 2 choices, and we're going to continue with that for our next 5-year adoption. So we didn't see a difference between the proficiency in schools that chose HMH versus schools that chose Benchmark. We saw great growth across the board. We thought we chose 2 very strong curriculum, and we've chosen that same pattern with math as well. So in a world of autonomy, we have definitely thought about what's best for students. And at the elementary school level, because of the feedback that we got from the schools, we decided to go with a controlled choice model because we have 41 elementary schools, so it's hard to get everybody on the same page. But we did choose 2 very strong curriculum for math and for ELA in the elementary school space.
I appreciate you clarifying that. I am grateful to just get that feedback because for me, I did have a lot of questions around what the outcome differences might have been, if there was variations or not. I think at some point to be able to dig in on the data on that, just not that I don't believe what you're saying, but
Absolutely.
to see the data would be helpful. And also around the investment in textbooks, I just wanted some clarification on what is the cadence of our rollout. I kind of heard like a kind of overbrush of it, but I haven't seen it in presentation yet. Now, what grade levels are we making, in what subjects, what years are we doing it, that kind of thing. And also I just want to highlight and say thank you so much to Dr. Johnson and the team. For us, I think making the smart pivot before we even have to do any policy to move away from digitized assets and moving back to physical assets. I think I hear it from parents all day, every day, that they want it real bad for us to get back to the basics. So thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you talk, are you going to do the textbook sequence?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
All right, so a couple things. I wanted to add that even though we have a textbook adoption, just wanted it to be clear that we have our own district instructional framework that we rolled out, and we are standards-based first. So I think that helps with reducing the variability amongst the 2 curriculum choices. So for us, it's the curriculum, yes, we have that, but first is the standards. It's also how does this align to our instructional framework, which is patterned behind neuroscience, how the brain learns. And then we implement or integrate that curriculum into that framework with the standards being the priority. So that helps to reduce that variability. And as we look at the data, the DIG team, our data team has already created a filter where we can sort our data by resource, which is great, and we'll continue to do that. And so when we pull out data, if you want it sorted by resource, we can do that. We've decided to go with a 5-year cadence for an adoption plan. So we have a table that we can send to you, but for right now, for elementary, in ELA and math, the next adoption won't happen until 2031. And then in science and social studies, the adoption will happen in 32 and 33. So we're anticipating a science adoption coming up in 27, and we'll revisit whether or not we need an adoption for
2028 with social studies. In middle school, we've done the adoption already for ELA. Now that adoption, that contract was for 3 years. So we will revisit in 2028, but it will be, the next cadence will be 5 years from that. And then for math, we've adopted in math and science. So the next adoption will be 2031. And again, we will revisit if we need to change the curriculum for social studies in 2028. And then at the high school level, we've done the adoption for, it's the same thing for high school, for ELA. So we'll be coming up with another adoption in 2028. And then adoption for math and science in 2031, and we will be coming up with an adoption in 2029 for high school social studies. So that's our tentative plan for our adoption cadence, but we can send you that table.
Thank you.
And was there any, there was another one, textbooks. We are very excited about textbooks. Please help us spread that narrative, because I know that there are a lot of school districts that have moved away from textbooks and have gone completely digitized. We do both. So to my student there, that is one of the things that our funds show up as. So you get the opportunity to access your resources digitally, and you should have a physical copy as well that you can utilize. So we definitely believe in books in hand. And when our adoption comes up next year with our math and our science, they will also have the full kit and caboodle. That's the resources, the textbooks. They will have the manipulatives as well, and they will also have that digital option to make sure that they have that access at home.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, this is for Dr. Bracken. Hey, Dr. Bracken, I'm so
Hello,
glad
how
to
are
see
you?
you again. Every month is always my pleasure to talk to you the most. You're just
thank you.
the numbers. So, again, I wanted to ask about the $100 million deficit, and now we're having a budget that, for the first time, is balanced. How did we get here? And how do we continue that? I mean, it cannot be sustainable with us continuing to consolidate and shut down buildings. So what are we doing to make sure that this is sustainable beyond this year? And then if you could also explain to me on page 29, the equivalent of 1.64 meals is within the TADS. I don't know what that means. Have we made any money from it? And how can that help us to sustain? Because I don't know, or if it can.
Absolutely. Thank you for the questions. So yes, 2 years ago, or going into the FY 2026, FY 27 budget development cycle, we showed that $100 million gap beginning the process in FY 26, and we showed over 5 years without us taking any action, that would be over $250 million. So we started the work last year to close that gap, and you can see that happen through our decrease in usage of fund balance. So for the FY26 budget, the one we're in right now, we primarily made those reductions through the central office. So we cut $70 million from the central office. We got much more efficient and leaner in a lot of our operations. So we started that work in the current year. For FY27, the year we're building for, we continue to get leaner. We start making these trade-off decisions. So you'll see as we roll on new initiatives, we're really being critical about what things we can roll off. Next year, we'll continue to work towards becoming more sustainable as we see our schools become more efficient in the operations of through our school allotments. We're going to be taking on some processes this year to look at how we're allocating to schools, not only in the funding model, but also just taking pressure off of our principals and the time that they spend building their budgets. So we'll just continue to chip away at that. However, we did mention that we have more innovation, more initiatives coming down the road in order to meet our goals for 2030. And so just back of the napkin, this morning we started putting numbers towards some of those initiatives, and I quickly came up with $60 million. And I'm sure it will be more than that as we continue to think about what's working for kids and what we want to expand. And so while we are becoming more sustainable, we also know that we need to invest in those things that are working. And so that takes me back to your question around revenue. So Currently, we are working on two different initiatives. One is making sure that we have full access to our commercial tax base. That's very important, especially as we see more and more relief coming from us, but also from the legislature for homesteaded properties and residential properties. The second thing is specifically to the TADS, when you look at how much we have available to collect from our digest, about 1.6 mils worth, so we have a 20.5, soon to be 20.3 millage rate. 1.6 million of that is not collectible to us. It's going back to reinvest in the development of the city to pay bonds and debt for the TADS. That's just important context when we are talking about what our millage rate is and the understanding that not all of that is for our operations. Some of it's paying debt. And so more access to more revenue is going to help us achieve more of our goals quicker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Zeff.
Thank you, Dr. Bracken. A lot to like in this budget. It is a moral document. We're investing in teachers. We're investing in our schools. We're being respectful of the taxpayers. So thank you, Dr. Johnson, for your leadership here. This doesn't happen by accident. As a matter of fact, the other thing happens by accident where we reach into fund balance. So thanks for your intentionality and for hearing us and putting us in a position to vote for something we're really excited about. Just a quick question on the commercial digest. I think you started to talk a little about this with Board Member Hutcherson. How are you feeling? Make us comfortable that we're not going to get bad news about the commercial digest. And after we had a difficult conversation last year around this time, that the numbers missed. What's your read on that right now?
So we don't have any information from the Fulton County Assessor's Office yet. We're waiting. We'll be waiting a little bit until we get those numbers. What makes me feel comfortable is last year we had assumed some growth and then it ended up going negative. This year we have no growth assumptions on commercial at all. So if it does grow, that'll be good news for us. If not, we should not be coming back to you with bad news later on in the year. So that's what we know right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Board Member Mitchell.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I've heard a lot of this already, but I do have a couple quick questions for you. On slide 31, we talk about the additional investments, and you mentioned that would be around roughly $60 million. How do we get to that $60 million? Like, what are our opportunities to make sure that we have those additional dollars? I assume that they would be crucial funds in helping us kind of achieve our broader strategy down the line, but how do we get to that $60 million?
Yeah. So it will be incremental over the next 4 years. So I'll just use the goal around the average teacher salary of $100,000. That back of the napkin would be about $20 million in new investments for teachers alone. That breaks down to about a 3% salary increase, right? So we just want to be slow, meticulous. We're not going to drop all $20 million in for teacher salaries in 1 year. We'll kind of work through there. And some of this is the trade-off decisions. So each year as we're investing in new things, this board made some really hard decisions in December and January around school mergers and closures, and those types of decisions where the district is becoming more efficient allows us to reinvest in targeted initiatives that support all students. And so it is going to be some of that trade-off. It's going to be continuing to work to have as much access to all the revenue that we can get so that we can continue to fund these initiatives, and then just staying really lean with our central office and administrative overhead.
Great, thank you so much. So I would consider the universal pre-K and the community hubs pretty much foundational to our future growth. How does this conversation work alongside the conversation around TADS and the potential foregone tax revenue that we have in the future? Is there any concern about what these investments look like in that same bubble? Just give me some thoughts there.
Yeah, so some of as it currently stands, we anticipate both Beltline and East Atlanta to close in around 2031. So both of those would be past our 2030 goals and initiatives, but absolutely in alignment with some of our longer-term 2040 goals. That allows us to plan around. Of course, we don't want to use fund balance and depend on fund balance, but it does give us a little bit of cushion knowing that at some point we'll be able to receive those funds. Pension falls off in that same year, so we're also still investing $40 million a year towards our pension in 2030. That would come back to us as well. So some of it is remaining diligent and remaining efficient and really prioritizing funding over these next 4 years. But access to the TADS gives us some opportunity to plan ahead, to look forward in 5 years. Because those Beltline alone would return about $90 million to us. And so just knowing that we can plan for those funds is very helpful.
And you say that's the Beltline would give us $90 million in 2030?
2030, 2031.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Katie.
I think this budget is evidence of us really digging in to do the work that we have to achieve our goals. Like really seeing our priorities, like show me your budget, show me your priorities. And we see it in literacy, exceptional education, post-graduation readiness, and talking about additional funds we'll need in those priority areas and others, certainly community hubs and early learning, because the costs aren't going to decrease, they're going to increase, but it's how we're using them and adjusting. So again, quadruple click and more to everyone, thanking you, Dr. Johnson and team, for getting us to this place, but just a reminder that it's continual work and we really have to be focused. We talked a little in Budget Commission about how we're not receiving as much in Title I just because of the changing demographics, and I think that's something we had to be extremely mindful of. And the local property taxes that we're very reliant on, and also the pressures that we will continue to have across the street. But it's just something to be, for the board to think about continually as we do this work. And we're positioning ourselves, thanks to the good work that's been done, to really shift our foundation to be tight financially. I don't know if there's anything you want to add around title funds or anything else, but I think that that's something we just have to continue to keep in mind and watch closely.
Yeah, so we are seeing a decline in title funding. Overall, the bucket of title is staying the same, but the census data is demonstrating that we have less students who are qualifying for title funds in the district. And so we will expect some decrease in title funding, which title, not only is it consolidated to give more flexibility to our individual schools, but it also supports things like our summer school, professional development. So those trade-off conversations have to happen as well if we're going to talk about what the general fund can support as we see federal funding starting to drop off a little bit.
Thank you. And we know the need is great for our families and our communities, hence the community hubs. So we're going to have to make sure we have the resources that our families and communities deserve to best support our students even outside of school. So thank you for getting us to this point, and also that we can provide property tax relief, which is extremely important for everyone. So I'm excited to take the tentative first vote on this later tonight, as well as I hope my colleagues are. And thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Braxton, for the presentation. Heard a couple of things just really quick. One is, and I think we talked about this before, connecting the decisions that we're making today and having check-ins with like how they connect to our student outcomes. And so really hope that we can start building that into some of these conversations. This $60 million BOLD goals, I think as we're juxtaposing that conversation around impact of TADS, impact of commercial property taxes, we want to be continuously updated on what the number is to fund the strategic plan that we voted on collectively, and make sure that we're no matter what happens around us, that we're able to still fund all of our priorities. And then definitely, I guess the only other thing, my question would be, what are the trade-offs? What are we not able to fund in this season? And maybe that's something that the administration can follow up with later, so that we're just super clear about, not right now, because it's a balanced budget, what are the pieces that we would love to have at the table that we're not able to?
Yep. And if I could just make one point, I think that slide that showed those BOLD goal areas, those are the things right now that are really unfunded that we need to lean in more around, frankly. And honestly, this slide is to serve a twofold purpose. I'm hoping some more money falls from the sky in a recurring way. Because if it does, these would be the first three places that I would recommend to the board that we look at more, post-secondary college and career advisement for our secondary students, investment in community hubs, and then investment in early learning would be the three places. Deeper investment in early learning would be the three places that are unfunded that have need, and to the point are impacted by potentially future decisions, be it TADS, be it decisions that we make in general, have implications for it.
Right. Before I step down, I just want to thank my colleagues. It does take everybody to build a budget like this, and I know some of my team is here. Executive Director Brian Stevens, School-Based Director Kathleen Liu, and Department Director Destiny Boyd are all here, and so I wanted to make sure that they get their love too, because they're the ones that are doing all the hard work. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have one final presentation.
Yes,
Dr.
thank you.
Johnson?
Thank you, Lisa. So the next update is a policy update, and as we do this is obviously a new element, I guess we will, to presentations, but the policy that is highlighted is around college and career advising. Probably this time is a little bit different than even than future times, because there has been work already going on in this space, and so I think it's important that we provide a little bit of a snapshot into that work, and then Carolyn Barnett will give an update around the policy work that the policy committee has and is doing. So I will turn it over to Mr. O.G. Dennis, I'll let him tell a little bit about himself, who is new to the district. We're excited to have him and welcome aboard.
I tell you, that's the first time, right? Okay. Good afternoon, Board Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Zeff, board members, and Superintendent Johnson. And again, thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. Again, as Dr. Johnson stated, my name is Dr. O.J. Dennis Jr., and I am the Executive Director of College and Career Readiness. And as I enter my fourth week here in Atlantic Public Schools, I join you with 28 years of experience in education, first as a teacher, a principal, a director of secondary schools, and now Executive Director of College and Career Readiness. But I thank you. I bring my experience as a father, though, into this role, as my own children have benefited from intentional and focused advisement that resulted in them graduating with an industry certification in applied health. That allowed them to enter the workforce prepared, trained, and qualified. Now, coupled with that, they earned their associate's degree, which benefited me as a parent in saving 2 years of college times 2 children. So I speak to you this afternoon from experience and excitement for what's to come. So tonight's presentation covers 2 interconnected areas that are central to our district's mission, college and career readiness, and the counseling and advisement policy that will make that readiness accessible to every student here in Atlantic Public Schools. These are not separate conversations, they are one. We cannot prepare students for college and career readiness if we do not first ensure that every student has a trusted adult in their corner helping them build that plan. So today, we will show you the progress we have made, the gaps that remain, and the policy that will close them. So of course, as we mentioned earlier, our North Star remains unchanged: one district, one goal, every child. And tonight's work is how we deliver on that promise. have food number 2. Got it. Oh, there we go. Now, in alignment with our strategic plan, we are sparking students' curiosity by expanding access to high-interest, workforce-ready offerings throughout the district. Our work is organized around 4 core areas of focus, each of which reflect a belief about what students deserve. First, we have ownership. We believe that students should be active agents in their own educational journeys and not passive recipients of decisions made for them. The second is multiple pathways. There is no single definition of success after high school. A student entering a skilled trade, enrolling in community college, attending a 4-year university, or enlisting in military service, all of these are successful stories. And third, we see here we have rigorous course offerings where we want every student to have access to coursework that challenges them, engages them, and prepares them not just for the minimum requirement to graduate. And fourth, ultimately, everything we do in this space should culminate in a graduate who is ready for college, ready for a career, and ready for life. As we can see here from our visual, multiple schools now offer a wide and growing variety of advanced academic pathway, CTAE pathway, fine arts, and world language. And more students are beginning to access these opportunities. If we take a look at our data here, the college and career readiness rate of 43.28 percentage points is up nearly 9.2 percentage points. And we see here that based on the data, students are demonstrating real measurable readiness and not just enrollment. From this visual, we can see growth in AP exam participation and the number of students earning qualifying scores. And we notice how we had a jump from 2019 to 2025 of 41% to 61%. So we see that students are really taking advantage of this provision. And of course, here we have Achieve Atlanta. And I want to take a moment to recognize them because they were the 2025 Partner of the Year. And this partnership represents one of the most meaningful investments in our students' post-secondary success, and the numbers speak clearly for themselves, as we have 6,767 Achieve Atlanta scholars since the founding in 2015, and numbers keeps growing and growing. Now, as you all know, we still have work to do, and students have voiced the need for more support. And when we listen carefully, 3 themes emerges. And this reminds me of my first board meeting, which is last month, when we had that young man named Dennis. Now, just remember, because it has my last name, Dennis. But he was very vocal in what he wanted and what he expected of us. So first, we noticed the inconsistencies across schools. Second, we've noticed the documented gaps in college access. And third, research supports investment. We know that it works because the data tells us that. So now this brings me to, at this point, to my colleague whose work is central to addressing everything I just described. Dr. McKinney leads our academic counseling team, and she was going to share with us the how we are building the infrastructure to ensure that no student in Atlanta Public Schools faces these challenges without support.
Thank you, Dr. Dennis. As Dr. Dennis said, I know that this work is very important, and this work is not done in silos or alone. So in order for us to get students to move, we have to make sure that we have the work at hand followed by the strategies that we need to provide for our counselors. So I'm going to briefly introduce myself. My name is Dr. Vontresa McKinney. I am the coordinator of academic and school counseling here in APS for our 9 through 12. First of all, how I got to this work, I'm not new to this work. I've been doing this work for a while. Prior to this role, I've been an elementary school, middle school, and high school counselor in Dougherty County and in Colquitt County. I've also been the manager of master scheduling support for Fulton County. I've also served as the assistant principal in Fulton County, and then I've served as assistant director of student support and engagement in Dougherty County. And I've been here in APS since September, a little longer than Dr. Dennis, but still less than a year. So I want to move forward with our counseling framework. So in order to get this to happen, we need to make sure that we put in place a counseling framework. And how we're going to do that, we're going to make sure that they provide training, support for all of our counselors. How are we going to do this? With a rollout, which I will discuss in my next slide. Advisement to all students. Again, advisement is not a right. It's not a privilege, but it's a right for all students. And we want to make sure that every student has the same experience across the district. We've noticed that there's been some inequities in certain areas, so we want to make sure that it's consistent. So if students move from one school to another, they're receiving the same services. Also, all students will receive grade level aligned experiences. An example is middle school. So they're career exploring during the middle school. So at that time, they're going in and looking at what are the things that I can do post high school? What does my future look like? And how do I get there? And then 4 is counselors will be working in the 80-20 rule. So the ASCA gold standard is that counselors provide 80% of their time in direct service to students. The other 20% is that indirect, and that's where they're doing the paperwork and the additional duties as assigned by their principals. So again, we want to make sure that we're following that model. What you see before you is a draft of a few pages of our counseling framework. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this framework is K-12 approved, and that we focus in grade bands. So for K-5, it's going to be foundation and awareness. So this is where students will figure out what it is that they're good at. What are the things that they could possibly do after they graduate from high school? 6 through 8 is when they're going to explore those fields, explore those talents, explore those skills that they currently have. And then 9 through 12 is where the rubber meets the road. That's where the planning for post-secondary readiness takes place. And during this time, students will make sure that they have a plan for what they're going to do after 12th grade. Either that is to go on to college, to go on to a career, to go on to the military, or to start their own business. And we have provided them with those skills that they'll need. So what you see before you again is a draft, and we just kind of highlight the APS advisement framework, what that looks like. So what will counselors deliver? And then how will they deliver that? As well as the support. Again, we're looking at this through tiers, how we do everything else. The tier 1 is that general support that we're providing for schools. And then that tier 2 and 3 is more intensive and personalized supports. How will we do this, you ask? First, we're going to start with our planning and development, which is now we've created this framework. And again, we're vetting it with more feedback from our stakeholders. And then after we finish the development, we're going to start with the actual rollout. So during our pre-planning and post-planning, we're going to be doing training sessions with our counselors. So before they leave on June 4th, they'll get to view this plan, and we'll start rolling it out. When they come back in July, we'll start to set up those training sessions and then roll into full implementation and launch in August. Now, how will we monitor this? My department will make sure that we're going out and we're doing quarterly visits with schools. And at those visits, we're going to be having checkpoints and data that we're collecting. So again, we're going to make sure that each school is providing the same academic support and the same academic process to all schools. So next steps, again, this work is not done in silo, as I said, and it cannot stand alone. So what are we looking forward to? We're anticipating a summer student advisement. And you may ask, what is that? So for our rising juniors and seniors, this is a critical point for them. The next step for them is life and beyond. So how are we making sure that they get across the stage? How are we making sure that they're graduating? So first, we're going to do those transcript audits. Make sure that they're on target to graduate. If they're not, if they need remediation, set up a remediation plan for them. Also, we're going to make sure that if there's missing community service hours, give them opportunities to get those hours, as well as making sure that they create a post-secondary plan. What is it that they want to do, and how are they going to get there? And then following up with the FAFSA process if their intent or plan is to move on to a 2-year or a 4-year college or university. How will they get there? What paperwork will they need to complete the FAFSA? When does this paperwork need to be done by? And what to expect after they complete the FAFSA? And then the second thing that we've done is creating clarity and consistency for students and families. As you know, each school, we're trying to make sure it has the same academic advisement and supports. So we've created a district-wide academic planning guide. So this will be a front-facing guide for our students and our parents to outline the programs that we have that we're offering here in APS by school, by discipline, and by CTAE level. So again, letting them know what schools will offer these programs. And as you see here on the visual, this is a draft of our document. Again, still vetting for stakeholder approval and making sure that we're including everything. So this is the fine arts course offering. So the parents will see all of the courses, the course names, and a description of those courses. So again, because sometimes your child may come home and say, I want to take choral ensemble, and you're like, what is choral ensemble? I can now go and look and see what is choral ensemble. Again, this provides parents and students with knowledge that they may not have as they're sitting down to do that planning for their next year's course request. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Carolyn Barnett, so that she can see how the policy, she can tell you how the policy plays into making sure that this counseling framework, summer advisement, and this academic planning guide rolls forward.
Thank you. So this is the opportunity where planning intersects with policy. And so I want to just first thank the policy committee for their vision and their thoughtfulness around developing a policy that would anchor this work. And so our policy committee chair, Mr. Brooks, Dr. Casey Brock, and future Dr. Tony Mitchell. I just want to say thank you for the thoughtfulness around the vision for this policy. And so here's the proposed policy that as the full board we're here tonight. The policy is around counseling, advisement, and academic and career policy planning. This is to establish a district-wide policy that will ensure that all students, not just some, but all students have access to high-quality counseling and academic advising. Our roadmap with the policy committee is first, we will have first read for tonight. We will receive feedback, final adoption, and then administrative regulations, and then you get the work to be done and monitored. And so why this policy? If you had the opportunity to be in the student advisory wrap-up session, we heard the recommendations. Board, you've heard stakeholders. Ask for various coursework, advanced coursework. Why don't our district have continuity across the district? And so this policy will anchor the need for counseling advisement across the district. This is the key policy components. It will be a K-12 counseling program, individualized academic career planning, course selection guidance, and a component with family engagement. The potential impact for our students is ensuring that our students understand their graduation requirements, opportunities to explore career interests, rigorous coursework, and post-secondary pathways. Equity and access. We want to make sure that this policy, again, as an anchor, undergirds eliminating barriers to advanced coursework, AP, and dual enrollment. We want to make sure that it is inclusive of advising practices and it aligns with our non-discriminatory policies. And so then we lead into the superintendent's requirements. As I stated earlier, we will, after first read, after final adoption, you will see regulations and implementation plans. We will ensure consistent advising practices across the district. We will monitor and report outcomes to the board. Here is again the expected outcomes: improved coursework alignment, increased participation, stronger post-secondary readiness, and better informed students and families. And so here are our next steps. We want to receive feedback from additional stakeholders. We want to finalize the policy language, develop administrative regulations and guidelines, and then the good work can begin of implementing timeline and training. So I want to thank you, and I invite you, your questions, but most of the questions probably will be directed to the policy committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, team. And so I think we're in a unique scenario where we have multiple actual college access and college readiness professionals and experts on the board. And so I think my ask as we go into this conversation, because I'm sure we have great recommendations and thoughts and ideas of how this should roll out, is that we focus on the policy part of the conversation and the emphasis of time, and really lean into the critical questions that could provide guidance to shape a dynamic policy for our district. And so to that end, I will start over here, Katie.
Thank you. This is exciting. I mean, this is evidence we're really leaning into the post-graduation readiness place and space, and then obviously starting in kindergarten too. When I look at expected outcomes, that helps me say, where are we trying to go, and appreciate the policy committee and the work you're doing in the policy space. And I know we have, a lot of work to go and the regulation. I'm just thinking with the expectation, the implementation, and understanding the realities of our district, with different size schools, autonomy of schools to make choices and counselors, like how are we making sure we're taking into consideration all the realities of our district, and also looking really at how we're going to support the implementation and ensuring it works. Like, in the end, why will this be the right plan for our district at this point in time? Because these things have been important, but we just haven't seen them actually come into place, and it's not because of a lack of intention. There are great counselors across the district. We just haven't had maybe the right support or structure. So that's what I'm looking for from this, to see how we can make sure this actually happens and we best support it as a board. So, however,
yeah, this sounds like a great opportunity for a principal supervisor to lean in. So Lisa Hill looking, Curtis Douglas looking, they both looking. I know somebody gonna start walking up here in a minute. But in all honesty, and you just talk about your work. In all honesty, this is an area as well that's been too loose in the district. We got this loose and tight, and too much choice around this conversation. This needs to be an expectation at every school, and the staffing component. So when I'm talking about the variance and variability that you see, it's driven by the ability to make this position something else or not. The role of the counselor, how it supports the school, the ratios, all the things are really important. So I'll let y'all speak to that.
Good afternoon. So one thing, I have had the privilege of serving at some point in the last 2 years, most of all of the high schools and secondary schools. and seeing the level of variability depending on the individual in the position. Also, there's a huge need for role clarity. In some cases, you have principals who, the 80-20 rule, in some cases, it may be a little inverted. So this is my 26th year in the district, and there is a huge need for us to level set. There's a such thing as will and skill. And I can tell you 100%, our counselors and our support staff, they definitely have the will. We have to norm on exactly what is expected. We have had a lot of turnover of, especially in student support. So this is the right time to reset. So it's very clear what we expect, but not just what we expect, what we can support. And we owe it to our children. Dennis, I actually, after the last board meeting, I had a chance to go out to sit and meet with Dennis as well as tour the school, and he actually did a survey. And we really dug into what does advisement look like for you here? And then I was able to go to Carver, have a similar conversation. And although those schools sit right around the corner, it looks different depending on the individual that is there, depending on the principal is there. So this is a huge opportunity to level set for all schools. And there was also a young lady who was on our superintendent's advisory meeting about a month ago. And she was sharing all the great things. She was a Maynard Jackson scholar. And she was sharing all the great things of how her counselor was readily available. So I will say, with this being year 26 for me, it's past time. It's the right thing to do for all of our scholars, and it does not matter where your zip code or area code is. All of our children deserve this. So I want to applaud the team, and we have been working collaboratively, myself as well as the other secondary associate superintendents, to make sure that we get this right for all of our children.
Board Member Mitchell. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh. Did you have something
No,
to
I was
add?
just going to say thank you. And I know you know the realities. And so, yeah, looking forward to the work ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon. There's a consistency factor that we're obviously trying to reach, and I think that was presented today. But beyond that, because I just don't want to repeat what was already said, is really putting a stake in the ground for each school and what they can also offer. There will be some variance amongst each school. So while we want to be consistent with that, also keep in mind we have a variety of programs. So while we want it to look the same, we want to be consistent across the board. There are some differences in schools that we want them to really maximize on. For instance, just an example, I'm kind of familiar with North Atlanta. They offer IB and, some AP classes. So for North Atlanta, it's really highlighting IB and how that students could take advantage of that. Certain schools have more CTA, not more, but a focus on certain CTA programs. So we want consistency across the board, but we also want schools to maximize their offerings to benefit the students in their school, because obviously every school doesn't have the same program. So I say that because I didn't want to repeat what everybody else said, but also want you to understand that that's just as important, that we can't be the same everywhere. But there are some very strong, everyone has a strong program. And when you see the academic guide, you'll be able to have people will be able to have a better understanding of that and what each school offers each student and their community.
Thank you. Board Member Mitchell.
Also, just to add one more thing, I'm sorry, Board Member Mitchell. Also, when we think about our parents and our families, in a lot of cases, especially to the south of the city, a lot of our scholars are being raised by grandparents and even great-grandparents. So this is a unique tool so we can equip all of our stakeholders to make informed decisions. Even recently, I was at a school and we assumed there was a senior and the parent was there, the grandparent was there, not knowing how it works in terms of credits and graduation. And also having that conversation where it is a family discussion of the plan for our scholars. So equipping them with the resources to really know, how can I accelerate my scholar? And as my scholar is enrolling in these classes, then I'm clear as a parent on what the class is and how I can support as well. So it's a huge way to level set with our different stakeholders.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. This is an area that I really want us to get right. I know we've had a lot of conversation on the policy committee about this, but it is something that we've heard directly from a lot of our students on. So I'm glad that we're being very intentional about this because it's important work, and I'm scared of what Board Member Hutcherson would do if we don't figure this work out in the counseling space. So really quick question. So as we kind of think about next steps, how are we going to be intentional that, you know, both the plan and the supports follow students as they move from elementary to middle to high school? I think that we've heard about just, I think you get a bit more counseling in high school because things feel a bit more real. But how are we going to make sure that the students are having those supports when we give them in elementary school, follow them to middle school? How are we going to curate just an environment that allows them to really pour into some of the things that counselors are giving them in each of those levels?
So again, you only saw the first 2 pages of the framework, but the framework creates and has a scope and sequence for each grade level. So it's going to map out what K2 gets, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. So there are tasks and activities that each student will complete at each grade level. So again, there's going to be, like I said, a quarterly visit by myself and my co-counterpart that does K8 to visit those schools, and then they're going to get a document that they're tracking these activities. And so we're going to go in and do spot checks to make sure that these activities are actually happening.
That's good to hear. How do we plan on bridging parents into the process? I think about how much we want parents to be involved in the 9 through 12 space. And so how do we begin to get them involved K through 5? What are the opportunities that we can kind of build them into this framework?
So currently, schools are already having curriculum nights, and they're having different PTO meetings. So during those nights and those meetings, counselors will come in and make presentations to explain to parents what's going on, what their students are seeing in the counseling realm. When they go into the classroom and doing classroom guidance, what does that look like? What are the students learning? And how does that translate to future?
I would push us to think about how we make sure that those resources getting to all parents. I would think if we looked at the data, we probably have a few more people participating in some of those counselor nights in different parts of the district. So I want to make sure that parents across the district are getting that information. So as we think about next steps, let's be intentional about how we facilitate that.
And so as a secondary plan to that, also some of those meetings and those trainings can be videotaped, and then we have a repository where parents can go in and they can go and look at those videos. I'm not sure if we want to do a YouTube page or if we want to just have a site on our counseling page.
Thank you.
Board Member McDonald.
Hi. So, first of all, I think this is fantastic, right? I mean, this is really great work. As a now college mom who just wrapped up at North Atlanta, you know, I can appreciate that you're in a tricky spot, right? Because high school parents think their high school students should also have incredible onus on what they're doing. So the level of communication is not the same. Those kindergarten moms, we couldn't wait to get in there. You know, like you had 50 kindergarten moms just like, me, like I want to come to school and do whatever you need. High school, we've had jobs. Like you assume that your 17-year-old is going to take some responsibility. So it puts you all in a very slippery slope of like, what is the right thing? What's the right expectation of parents? And how do you communicate? And how do you funnel the information out there? But, you know, Curtis, you said something so important that all of our schools have different pathways for these kids. You know, my son was in IB. I copied you on the email, Curtis. When these kids came home from their fall semester of college, you would not believe the GPAs. And they're living their best lives. They're not missing a single date night, trust me. But they were crushing it. And every single one of them, I had about 20 boys at my house over holiday. And it was because they were like, I mean, we did IB. So the transition to college was a lot easier than we thought. So I emphasize that to say, IB isn't the answer for every kid, but the fact that you're creating all these different pathways so kids can be successful in whatever they do. But we know that the school, then the responsibility falls on the school to be making sure that they're sharing that, because every parent of a high school student isn't, you know, reading the email that gets sent home, because we are hoping that our children are taking that responsibility. So I admire the level of effort that you've all put in. I mean, Curtis, you know that like these, and by senior year, I mean, they come back from spring break and they're like, we don't go to school anymore, right? Because they're so excited about what's next. So I admire like the level of effort that you would put into something like this, right? To just give these kids everything that they could possibly need so that they can, whatever path they're on, that they could go and find the thing that's going to make them excel. So I admire what you're doing. It's not an easy job, right? And so, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. My son graduated a year ago. I think it's delayed. I really shoved it down last year, so now it's like coming up. But the greatest job we have, and like the Val Sal lunch was a perfect example, is that you get to go and celebrate a bunch of kids, some kids that you don't even know. But that's the beauty of us being willing to do all the other work that goes with it, is that we get to celebrate kids doing awesome things, and we are across the district doing incredible, incredible things. But I'm not doing anything. You all are doing it, right? So I just give you incredible praise and accolades for how hard the work is to do, but it is paying off. And like these high school kids that go to Georgia and all these other schools aren't coming back to tell their counselors. As much as I thought it was a great idea for them to do so, they declined my opportunity. But you don't always get to know like the outcome of what all this work that you're putting into these kids K through 12. And as a parent, I do see it. So I just wanted to put that on record because it is incredibly impressive.
Thank you. And we do have some excellent counselors here in APS, and I don't want that to go unnoted. They do tirelessly work. They go beyond and way past the hours that they need to put in to do this work to make sure that those students are crossing that stage. As you know, we're in the thick of grad clearance right now. So they're doing the extra hours to make sure that those students get to that end point, whatever that may be for that student. But it first starts with that graduation.
That's exactly right.
Thank you. Board Member Zeph.
That was a great commercial from Board Member McDonald for the counseling department. I'm glad we have that on YouTube so you can share that with your staff, because we really are thankful for all the work that you do. And I appreciate Dr. Johnson's ethic of, he talks about reducing the variability of instruction from classroom to classroom. It sounds like we're trying to reduce the variability of counseling experience from building to building. I think that feels like a good true north. My question is really the budget implications of this policy, because we know, I think the American Counseling Association says 1 counselor for every 250 kids. I think the state of Georgia is at 450, if I have that right.
Correct.
I'm not sure where we are. Are there budget implications to this policy that we need to be aware of going forward?
Not you. She gonna ask for all the money. Yes, but not the policy per se, right? Like I think it's separate from the policy. I will go on the record saying we need to invest here. And so it's one of those three buckets that was left up there when we talk about the big areas. This is an opportunity for investment. And frankly speaking, like all this stuff is interconnected. We're trying to point our resources in a system in a really targeted way. And this is one of the reasons why we had the hard conversations about, schools and looking at repurposing it. How do we reinvest dollars? And this is one of those areas where if we can make sure that all of our students has an amazing experience with somebody that's advising them with intention, it'll make a world of difference. Now, we're fortunate we've got great partners, whether it be Achieve Atlanta and others, but there's still variability across the district. And let's be really clear that this additional counseling support is probably a need in every high school in Atlanta Public Schools. It doesn't matter if it's North Atlanta to Washington, South Atlanta, it really doesn't matter, because sometimes what you experience is you could have a better ratio at one school over the other, but the problems, the challenges are more complex. And so, 350 or 400 students can feel like 700 in another place, you know what I mean, and vice versa. So yes, it will cost us some money. We've got some ideas about what it would look like to add 2 to 3 counselors, kind of depending on student numbers per class. That's part of the stuff that we're working into the other conversation. Was Lisa talked about the $60 million. Was that good enough, Dr. McKinney?
Thank you. Board Member Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I do have a minor suggestion, policy-wise. While the policy does have strong job outline in college, have a strong outline of college, career, work pathways. One of the things I do want to point out is the entrepreneurship part. A lot of times our students are looking to do something different. Being Atlanta has a very dynamic ecosystem of innovation and small businesses, it'll be great to have entrepreneurship as a core pathway along college and career. This will also look like a coursework, partnership, internship, and real-world experience. So I just wanted to highlight, I didn't see it in the policy, and I thought this would be a good addition, just to give a recommendation. I'm not supposed to give a recommendation, but just to point that out as part of opportunities for our students, that's all.
Good afternoon, everyone. In response to that, and Board Member Mitchell, you might remember, the IYC program at Douglas High School is rooted and grounded in the entrepreneurial pathway. As of this morning, we had a meeting with Clark Atlanta University to strengthen that pathway, which also undergirds engineering. So where it may not be a direct correlation with the actual policy, there are schools that have groundwork in entrepreneurship. And right now, that's the strong foundation at Douglas, which caters to the student needs at that particular high school.
Thank you.
Yes, and I am familiar with the program, great program, but policy-wise, I was just thinking how it would strengthen the policy with a little bit more directive coming from board vision and value statements of college and career life.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hutchinson.
I won't take long. You did an excellent job, school counselors. We're professional school counselors, not guidance counselors for our antiquated people that call us that. We're professional school counselors. Well, it is. I need this director, whatever her wonderful title is, to get exactly what she needs for her budget to do the job that we are all saying we want to see. You want to see students be successful with life beyond high school. Give the school counselors what they need, and tell me what you need, because I'm gonna yell and try and get it, or get it for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Brooks.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to our board leadership for having the innovation to bring a policy agenda to our whole board meeting. I think it, for me, I'm really able to kind of be in more of a receptive posture and kind of listen to what my colleagues are having to say. So I don't so much have like input, if you will. I do want to double click on something that Board Member Mitchell brought up, an emphasis around, which one, right? E. Mitchell, right? The big one, not the little one. But I wanted to double click on the emphasis on entrepreneurialism. I think, we would best serve the students in our district when we stop trying to prepare them to be good employees for other people first before making them good job makers for other people. And right now we're seeing a huge uptick in students who are not enrolling in college because many students are not necessarily seeing the ROI on that investment. And rather seeing a myriad of different streams and different types of economies that exist today, whether it be the creator economy or otherwise, where job opportunities are being created for them today. And I would love to see us center that, legitimize that, because I remember what it felt like to be the kid who was enrolling in college only because my mom said I was supposed to do it. And everything that I wanted to endeavor to do didn't necessarily entail college, but I didn't feel legitimized as an individual because school didn't center something outside of college. So I do want to double click that we need to be thinking in that way. And at that, I love that it's happening at Douglas, but I feel like it's something that has to be a part of what we do everywhere, because today's kids are just in a different place and they're living in a very different world. And I want us to be responsive to that as the people who are here to help create opportunity for them. So thank you to all of the feedback from everybody. I'm just going to continue to listen over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Does our student representative have a question?
Great job. Going off real quick, going off of what Miss E. Mitchell said, I take the entrepreneurship pathway. I'm going to be an entrepreneur after college and stuff.
What you gonna do?
Oh, I want to open up my own basketball training center and, you know, be able to make money on the couch.
Come on now.
But real quick, tapping on what she said, there's a student at Carver who started his own business and is just allowing people to know how it is to be entrepreneurs and how to work and stuff like that. So I want to give you his information because he wants to expand it to all APS schools so then they can kind of learn that. Got to put that out there. He's doing really great things. But going back to what I have, I was able to experience the day in the life at KIPP, and that counseling department like really amazed me, especially as compared to Carver, which I don't really know my counselors. So I just have a question on how can counseling departments be equally expanded across all schools in APS?
Great question. So to answer that question, let's talk numbers. So the numbers of students at KIPP as opposed to the number of students at Carver, the ratio is different. So if I serve Carver STEAM, so if I serve on my trajectory or my planning or my caseload, whatever word you want to use, if my caseload is 450 kids, where someone else's caseload is 250, I can have those one-on-one meetings with my students. I can spend 30 minutes a day or 45 minutes with a student to walk through their plans and their post-secondary. If I have 450 kids, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and I have kids that are barely coming to school, kids that are barely passing, I got to get that student that's sitting at home to come to school. And then once I'm working on that, that's going to take me an hour or two. I got to call parents to say, Montrese hasn't been to school all week. What's going on? And then parents not returning my phone calls, now going to social workers. So that time that I'm doing that, I'm not able to concentrate on the student. Now, most of the kids that at KIPP, they applied. They wanted to be there. Their parents are making sure that they're doing that extra. So if I call Montrese's mom at KIPP and say, hey, where is she? Oh, she's sick. She'll be in tomorrow. Or she has whatever. She had a doctor's appointment. I'm getting that contact and that communication. But when I don't have that communication, I have a large caseload, it's hard to devote that time. Now, they're what we call our bubble kids, I want to call them. So many times you have those kids that are your low flyers, you're spending a lot of time on them. You have those high flyers and those helicopter moms that are going to come in and make that appointment for you to see. Those kids are in the middle, sometimes don't get that service that they need because the counselor's so busy either servicing the top half or the bottom half because of their caseload.
Yeah.
So I would.
No, you're good. Keep going. You're fine.
So what we would love for that to do is that all kids get to know their counselors, that they get that one-on-one, that they get those town hall meetings where that first introductory, that first week of school, that's what the framework is. Those town hall meetings, that introductory period. Hi, I'm your counselor. This is what I can provide for you. These are my office hours. This is when you'll see me, and give them that calendar so they'll know what to expect and know how to contact them. This is my link for a meeting, virtual or face-to-face. So again, this is going to put in place some of those checkpoints that some schools currently have. So it is the same across the district.
Yeah, and I know KIPP STEAM is purpose-built. I know one of the things we're going to look at as well is we just got to invest. Like I don't want to make it too complicated. We just got to spend some more money and reduce the ratio. Like I'm just being honest, so that there's more opportunity for intensive support. So you're 11th grade, so you may get to graduate, but as we look at STEAM becoming a part of EC or, as that continues to transition, we've just got to spend more money in this particular space. And the answer, more money isn't the answer to everything, but in this particular case, more resources and directing those resources for this and not anything else. It's for this. It makes a world of difference. And then expecting those folks that we're directing those resources to and for to be spending the time with students like yourself.
Thank you.
Just real quick. So, what is the intended student to counselor ratio?
Yeah, the national
Every child should have a counselor.
individual. We're going to keep every school open and make sure every child have a counselor. It's 1 to 250 is the national standard. I don't know what exactly our ratio is. I know it's kind of sliding. We'll actually send it in the board update, but I feel like it's 450-ish. But there's some opportunity even with that because we've allowed that because of, and this is again but because of how we staff, we've allowed that to be a flexible position where it does not need to be flexible. It just needs to be what it is. As you're going to be at this ratio, we're going to staff you at this ratio, and that counselor is not optional, right? And then we need to add to it based on the numbers.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to close out. Board Member Brock, did you have a closeout question?
This is not the one for me to be at the end for. It's really hard for me to not put my day job hat on and my board job hat on for this one, to not start to name off a bunch of things. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in this space. I'm really excited that we're putting policy behind it. And I just want to touch on the reality that I won't even say the number. I didn't want to put it out there. A significant number of our seniors are graduating and going to college and having to take remedial courses. If you heard the actual number, it's real. It's about 76% of our students are in need of remedial courses when they go to college. However, looking at a level deeper, 4 out of 5 of the top colleges we're sending our students to have lower than a 50% college graduation rate. Those numbers are really important, and I'm almost shaking here because it's not numbers to me, it's students. And so to what Board Member Mitchell said, it is so important that we get this right. And to me, something that we haven't really talked a lot about today in this presentation is quality. And I think that's something that can't necessarily come from the policy piece of this, but that I'm begging of you all to make sure that the quality piece of this is here. To what board member today, Kai, said about her day in the life at KIPP, I know, I'm just going to say it, I don't care. We've got this whole charter and whatever, okay? But the thing is, I've worked in collaborative partnerships between both where we've taken some of those best practices that Kai was able to see and that we're sharing them with some of the largest school districts in the country. And so I do know that it's this is a moment, this piece is one where I'm let's figure out what are people doing at other schools, even if we're not obsessed with the kind of school it is, to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for all of our students, because it is that important. My questions, and you don't have to answer them, I'm just gonna put them here and then for you to just go back and discuss. The summer advisement piece, I know that's something that I've had discussions about. My hope is, or my wondering is, who is leading that summer advisement? And more than just thinking about the checkpoints that they've made to date, is thinking about have they built a college list? Is their essay plan? Those are the kinds of things. I've worked, unfortunately, and I didn't get this much money, okay? But parents were paying $10,000 for my services. I did not get the $10,000, let's be clear, right? But to counsel their students because they could afford it. And I hope that, that we can get to a place where our students even get half of those kinds of resources to be able to make the best college decision they can. And then I'm also wondering about the quality of the counselor training and wondering who's doing that and who are we partnering with. I know Achieve Atlanta does some of that work. And then last is what kind of tool are we using to be able to monitor what kinds of metrics students are meeting, right? To me, an ideal situation for a principal would be for them to look at. It could be Naviance, it can be SCORE, it can be Overgrad, it can be School Links, any of these things that they're looking at one of those and they're like, this is where kids are on their college applications. This is how many students have completed this milestone, and this is what we need to do as a school, not just as a counselor, to be able to make sure that our students are on track. And so I'm sorry for like the long and not really any questions, but there were questions in there that were hidden, right? But just this is really, really important. And if I can be of any help or service or anything to be supportive throughout this process, I would love to be, because it's that important.
Thank you. All right, thank you, team, for the presentation. And in the interest of time, I'll just close out with the follow-ups, which definitely better understanding of the budget implications as we're building out this critical work and policy. If there are opportunities to adjust the policy and be more explicit in entrepreneurship, I would also add test prep and equal access to test prep for students in financial planning, and make sure that we're hitting all of the markers across the board in those spaces. And then the other piece was the counselor ratio that we were going to get a follow-up on. Thank you all so much for the presentations today. Madam General Counsel, is there a reason for the board to retreat into executive session?
Yes, Madam Chair, the board needs to discuss personnel, real estate, and legal matters.
Thank you. Is there a motion to enter into executive session to discuss student discipline, real estate, and legal matters?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been properly moved and by Board Member McDonald and seconded by Board Member Brock, I believe. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.